Thank you, PP Victor, for agreeing to take an interview and express your opinions on the future education from a Rotarian's point of view. Being a veteran Rotarian for so many years, what do you think Rotary has given our children in terms of how they should prepare themselves for their life?
Well, thank you very much, PP Kenneth. This is a great honor to be able to share some thoughts with you. Rotary has done enormous contribution to education through a number of ways. One is we promote integrity in right? We service above self, and we promote service as a core element of life. It's a lifelong commitment for Rotarians. Secondly, we have international Rotaries International. We have exchange program. We have Rotary scholars over the years that try to cross-fertilize different cultures and civilizations. We have international service within the Rotary system. We have the Rotary Young Rotary Scholars, right? And we have vocational services, which are again part of our core. So education is not just learning the basic knowledge of life, but also vocational life, right? Because education, in my view, is a lifelong journey. Certainly for us, even in our, for me, even in my 60s, I'm learning every day. You know, the education of the 21st century will provide a lot of opportunity for people who are living longer than before. What we call the silver industry, you know, the silver era. Right? And now, because of the advance and the availability of technology, we are able to learn much easier. We're able to learn much more flexibly, and we're able to interact with our counterparts across the globe, you know, through Zoom or whatever, much easier. So Rotary itself is a catalyst as well as a contributor.
Yes. Integrity in vocation is one of the core parts of Rotary itself. How do you see this developing in the world becoming more and more competitive, not only on business-wise, but also political-wise, culture-wise, and even the climate, the climate problem that we're facing now?
Well, we are living in exceptional times, right? And if you look at the big issues for society of today and tomorrow, it's like climate change, like nuclear disarmament, like the infectious disease, right? These big issues of today and tomorrow, they require society to work together in partnership, in collaboration, and it requires big nations of the day to collaborate. If the big nations of the day do not see eye to eye, we don't have any chance of tackling these big issues. Right? Now, Rotary is an unusual organization. We are not in politics, but we are international. We are bipartisan, right? And we represent a stakeholder that are able to present important messages and work on the front line of society, right? And also we are able to influence our local community on what are the right things to do. Right? So fortunately and unfortunately, politics is local. Big issues of today, like the ones that we mentioned, are global, right? So the gap is actually quite difficult. So because local politicians, they don't have a responsibility directly on issues beyond their constituency, right? So British politicians, their responsibility is to their constituency. Americans are the Americans, right? But how do you encourage them to rise above their
The
narrow,
right?
in order to achieve global common good. Now, people like us in Rotary, we have a role to play. We are able to show that despite the different thinking of politics, despite the divisions, there are global common good that we need to instill responsibility and making sure that this generation and the next generation is not going to be shortchanged.
So we need more interaction between the Rotary, the local Rotary clubs and all the other Rotary clubs in order to come up with a wider global perspective
We need
for
thought.
the local communities.
We need thought leaders, right? And therefore, our regular interactions in Rotary, every week we have 1.3 people meeting, and through our different relationships around the world, right? And because Rotary is global, we can bring these messages on a global basis, as a voice.
And that, I can see where you're going. That creates what is the right thing to do on a global scale. And then we go back into the education, local community, and affect the children also.
Yeah, or at least raise more, sharpen the strategic communication of these big issues, so that the politicians can make sure that these important issues are in the forefront of their agenda.
Especially on climate change, where everybody needs to do their own part.
On climate change, on inequality, on social justice, on sustainability, these are the important issues for today and tomorrow. And unfortunately, the world is on a course of decoupling in certain aspects. But in terms of culture, common good, basic human decency, the advance of healthcare, the advance of food security, cyber security, energy security. These are the big issues of today, and of course even more important for tomorrow. And these are things that we have to look at today. If we leave it to tomorrow, it's probably too late. And Rotary, as an organisation, we should lead in the forefront to get these messages across.
Even if economic decoupling, it should not stop the people from interacting with each other.
Not
on the global, on ideas, on thinking and things like that. So, even economics, you put up trade barriers, you put up import taxes, etc. That is one thing. But of course, talking of each other in your own culture is a different thing. And I think it's even more important. Let's think a little bit about, you are a St. Paul poet boy. What did school teach you that you think helped you most in becoming your successful career?
I think that the schools provide a foundation, and it's instilled in you certain basic core values, right, that we take forward into our life journey. But one's education does not stop at school. We learn every day in interacting with friends such as Rotarians and other organizations. You travel, you meet people, and also I really believe on education through discovery, education when you are with grey hair, right? These we learn until the end. Yes. Education is about enlightenment and improving oneself. And why do you have that? You have that because you want to serve people who need different aspects of basic quality of life, who are not as accessible as others, right? And Rotary, the good thing is Rotarians believe in service above self, right? That's where we have committed ourselves to do.
today's academic curriculum stresses on STEM, which is more on science, technology, and things like that. Do you think that is enough to equip our next generation in front of the challenges, global challenges that we are going to encounter?
It is necessary, but it's not enough. The reason is that the world is going through a major pivot on digitization, right? Whether you call it Internet of Things or whatever. Digitization, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's communication, is going to be the future, right? And therefore, STEM is important, right? But I think the other parts is students need to learn more about international relations. We need to know more about the ethics. We need to learn more about history. Right? All these are part and parcel of what we call enlightenment. And enlightenment is basically the ability to discuss, to interact, to advocate, to articulate, even when you have different belief and point of view, right? And Rotary and Rotarian, we are trained to have that kind of occasions. Right? So I think we need STEM. It is necessary, but it's not, in my view, not sufficient.
Actually, all what you said can be summarized into a very simple four-way test. Because all that ethics and things like this, it goes down to the four-way test, and if we can practice that, I think we will have achieved quite a lot of it already.
Yes.
So, Victor, can you say a few words to our next generation on what to do, what to concentrate, focus on, just to keep in mind to help them in their future career?
Yeah, I think one has to understand that the world today is a lot more competitive, is interdependent, right? And we have to embrace different culture. We have to embrace the possibility of conflict. We have to embrace people acting with different views. But above all, we have to make sure that we believe in peace, because it's only through peace that we can sustain prosperity. And prosperity will give us opportunity for us to tackle some structural issues.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And without peace and prosperity, we can't even begin to tackle some of the social structural issues, the long-term issues, and that is very, very badly needed today. So I think the youth today, they know better than us, right? They are a lot more prioritized on achieving social justice, equality, inclusion. They are upbringing a lot more enlightened than we are.
Yes.
Right? And we have to give them the opportunity to strengthen those core values.
Yes, I remember one statement from a speaker in the Italian World Economic Forum that I went to, where you were also one of the speakers, and he was saying that once you're out of university for 5 to 6 years, your knowledge is outdated already, because nowadays the internet is so powerful in supplying intellectual intellect to everybody. So yes, the youngsters nowadays are very well front runner than us. But the other thing on the personality, on how to handle each other, different opinions, etc. They still need time to mature themselves to handle it. I think that is the main thing.
Yes.
They have a lot of ideas, they have a lot of ambitions, which are very good, but how to handle it comes with experience in life.
for those of us who have made so many mistakes over the years,
Yeah,
all
we
we
learn-
have
we
we
learn
learn
from
from
mistakes.
mistakes. We learn from mistakes. Yes.
I think, let's see, do you want to ask?
No, I don't have that much because I really appreciate the time and the sharing. Actually, yes, this is part of, as I mentioned, Rotary and Peace. Peace is essential. That is why we formed in Hong Kong the local chapter of the Rotary Action for Peace. And last night we had RI Director Peter Chu, he's from New Zealand. He listened to this rant. And he shared with us the Rotary's journey at the milestone of peace, starting in the early 20th century and up to now. And he mentioned that the Rotary Action for Peace, Hong Kong and Macau chapter, okay, is the first chapter in Asia. So I asked him the question: do you have it? If he could share with us what is his he likes to see the direction, or give some direction of this chapter. He said that maybe develop into a think tank. That is probably a little bit high, okay, but generally help the Rotary community to work on projects to support different clubs and the district in the kind of how to encourage peace building. And actually, during the last few months, we now have about 50 Rotarians who joined the Rotary Action for Peace, the global one. And then we have something like 58 who completed the Positive Peace online program. So people know what is positive peace now, more people. And then we have now, actually our own club is also a peace building club. And now we have something like 20. So in the short time, I think it's very encouraging. So everybody really seems to go for it. And last night we have Rotarians from 17 districts, from Argentina, Africa, all over this. Now you mentioned.
Zoom,
Oh yeah, on the Zoom, and we have 100 Rotarian registered.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's the first time.
Fantastic.
And the theme is shaping peace together. So this is what
I'm going to give. I've been asked to give a keynote speech in Tokyo, but obviously online after the new Prime Minister. And they asked me to talk about ethical capitalism, which is interesting, right? And what I mean, the other popular phrase now is a stakeholder capitalism or responsible business. Right? But actually, for Rotary, it's in our blood, right? If you talk about the four tests, right? And so actually, it's interesting that we need to talk about this. I think it's really, we only need to talk about this as a reminder. It should be in our...
It is in the blood of the Rotarian, but not in the general public. Because you know the statement of companies, they serve their shareholders.
Yeah.
That is, I find that is a very wrong
No,
statement.
that's
a very
outdated.
wrong statement.
That's outdated. We're talking about stakeholders now.
Yeah.
You know, the duty of a company is more than
It's
its
more than just to
employees, your customers, your bankers,
Yeah.
society at large,
Yeah.
right? Because trust is not just with shareholders. Shareholders is a stakeholder, but it's by no means the only one. Right?
But that is still a lot of business.
No. Mainstream is well. Mainstream is a stakeholder responsibility, right? Because even in the Anglo-Saxon world now, in the English company law, your stakeholder responsibility is beyond shareholders.
Yes,
So I think the mainstream is gone, and those who believe that they're only answerable to shareholders, I think they'll be left behind. Right? Because our children and our grandchildren, when they see whether I'm buying whether it's Colgate or Crest, right? They will ask themselves, right? Is this company or is this brand trustworthy, right? And trust manifest on many things.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the good thing is the young generation, they know better than
Yes,
our
yes,
generation.
that's good.
That is why they have this ESG, which is very much now a requirement for the listed companies.
Yeah, ESG right now, I'm very much into this for many years because there's no standardized, internationally acceptable principles of ESG. Right? The reason is the ESG that manifests, let's say, in the financial sector is different from a oil company, for example, right? And so that's why you can't just say this is the set of principles, right? Because it's different. Each country, depending on their stage of development, and each sector, you need different sets of matrices. So we've been working for 2 years with the Big Four and trying to articulate a set of matrices for different industries. So far, we got 138 leading companies to buy in. We hope that once we get to about 500, that we get the momentum. So it will have to be reported in as part of their annual report. And it's different. Now, for example, is it proper for a bank to lend money to an oil company in transitioning out of fossil fuel? Right? Because there's a lot of pressure on banks to say stop lending to company involved in fossil fuel, right? But you can't. Let's say there's a bank that say I have a 10-year program to transition out of carbon. Right? So should the bank support that? That's a huge debate, right? And that's why it's not as simple as some of the people on the street may think. Right? So ESG basically was the old, corporate social responsibility or ethical business. But now we have to drill down and to say how can we find different sector matrices that can work across sectors. Right? Because it's a very unusual thing, because there are so many versions of ESG, right? And we need to find a kind of like accounting principle, right? Where different industry can look up to. But Rotary, right? We are about governance. We are about sustainability. So again, we can repackage Rotary beliefs into these more noble issues. Yeah. But the thing is, having said all that, Rotary Club Hong Kong, we need one of the mission for the 90th year. We need to say that we need to walk the talk, right? As well as we can talk about this, but we need to behave this way, right? And I think you and I will know when you have more than 100 clubs, right? We need to take we have to act by example, right? Otherwise, we have to certain things about behavior. We need to take the lead. I think that's what otherwise, again, we have no chance with instilling those higher missions, those values, those missions. One is we have to be closer, and now technology allows us to be closer. Except we have to show we have to demonstrate what we say, we mean it, right? So it is hugely challenging because the business is so competitive. You're fighting for survival, but there are certain things that we need to make sure that we promote.
That's the reason why we strongly support the C's push for the focus on peace and focus on education. So this is the Hong Kong Club is strongly behind it.
The other thing we need to talk more to Peter. I'm sure he accepts this. When we do our 90th celebration, it has to be done with modesty, humility. It's not. It is a good thing to celebrate, but it's not something we have to celebrate in the appropriate way, right? And rather than having entertainment, having a string protected play is okay, right? But we should have somebody to talk about peace, to talk about sustainability, talk about the more meaningful things. Right? That's the soul. That's the soul of Rotary, right? That's the soul of people, and that's what I think we should take the lead to discover that and reimagine that. What's Rotary's role in the 21st century?